Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for another video. My name is Patrick. I'm a husband, a dad, and a human living in New York City. And on this channel, we talk about all of it. And today, Apple announced some new products, so you know we have to talk about this. So for those of you that don't know, I am an Apple fanboy. I am deeply entrenched in the Apple ecosystem, and I love it. Is it perfect? No, but does it work for me? Absolutely. I'm really happy with it. And it all started many, many years ago when I actually worked at Apple for quite some time.
I have to shake, wait, 2 hands? No, I'm not gonna do that.
And during that time, it was like the Apple heyday where they were releasing all of these new innovations and new inventions that were making our lives better. Once again, were they perfect products? No, but it seemed like every time they had one of these announcements, one of these town halls, one of these meetings, they would kind of shock everybody with what they were announcing and releasing, and everybody was so excited. I mean, I worked at Apple when the iPad came out, when the iPhone came out. Little known fact, did you know that the iPad, which was released after the iPhone, was actually developed before the iPhone? But Steve Jobs was, looking at his team and looking at the climate of whatever was happening in the world and said, we've got to get into the phone market first. So they actually had already designed the iPad, put it on hold for release, and released the iPhone first. A lot of people don't know that. Now you do. Now, I have to be honest, some of Apple's events over the past few years have made me wonder, has this company lost its innovative edge? There hasn't been anything that's just really blown my hair back, even though it seems as if something did. But these past few Apple events have been so exciting. There's been some shocking things like AirTags. I know they seem small, they actually are small. But AirTags were really exciting for me. I had no idea those things were coming out. Really, really cool. The M1 processor that Apple has now developed in-house for its machines. Really, really cool. So the complete redesign of the MacBook Pro, which I own right over there in that bag. Just really, really fun, inventive, and amazing. And I think that Apple is kind of getting that innovative, exciting edge back into these events and their announcements and their product line. So what did Apple talk about today? Let's get into it. First of all, let's start off with what might seem like a boring announcement, but it's still fun for a lot of us. There's new iPhone colors. And if you're one of these people that really pride yourself in what color your iPhone is, you're gonna be really happy. They released 2 new colors today. But alongside that, they also released the iPhone SE, the new version of a smaller iPhone. And to be honest with you, I've kind of flip-flopped between the larger iPhone, the Max versions versus the regular, and I've never gotten into the mini. But if you are near an Apple store and you're thinking about getting a new iPhone or your first iPhone, hop in there and pick up one of these new SEs, because it's not a phone that's smaller in features, it's just smaller in size. It actually packs quite a few amazing features that make it stable, that are gonna make its battery last a long time, and it has the A13 processor in it, I do believe. Oh my gosh, I could be missing that. I could be getting that wrong. We'll have to go to the tape.
We're bringing our extraordinary A15 Bionic chip to another iPhone, the new iPhone SE.
You could not be more wrong.
Regardless, a new iPhone has been released, and for those of you that are looking for a new iPhone, you definitely should check it out. Apple also released a new iPad Air. They redesigned it, and most importantly, they put inside of it the new M1 Apple chip, the Apple processor, the Apple Silicon. This really exciting chip that they're starting to include in all of their hardware, which makes the machines more reliable, it makes the batteries last longer, and since it's a processor that's made in-house, it's going to make everything work together even more seamlessly. So the iPad Air now has better battery life, it has speed bumps, and it's an amazing device. It also has that squared off look that I really, really like. As soon as they started making iPads that way, I bought one. I think it's incredible. And the new iPad Air is amazing. You should check it out. Let's dig a bit deeper into that M1 chip. I made a video about this a while back, but why is this M1 processor important? You see, when you go to purchase an Apple computer, you are buying a Mac at an Apple store. So the company that makes the computer actually has their own store. You're buying a computer at an Apple store that's made by Apple. And the software, the operating system that comes installed on that computer is made by Apple. And the internal design of that computer is made by Apple. So everything, every single department is hopefully talking to each other to make all of those things work together seamlessly. Not only the buying process, but the actual stuff the computer is made of and what comes installed on the computer, except for the processor. The processor is something that in the past was made by Intel. So it didn't really give us a bottleneck, but you can see that like if a company is making a product and every single aspect of that product they're making comes from inside their own house, you know it's gonna be a little bit more streamlined. And that's what we're seeing with this new M1 processor. So this M1 processor was made by Apple and first released out there and everyone lost their minds. It's an amazing little chip that is so much faster than most of the stuff out there, because the processor of a computer is kind of like its brain. It's kind of like monitoring everything, telling everything where to go and what to do. But then Apple released not just the M1, but the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. Now, I purchased a MacBook Pro 16-inch with the M1 Max processor built into it. And I have to say, it has blown me away. I will be editing video on that machine using that M1 Max processor a little bit later on tonight. It's amazing. And guess what? Apple today released the M1 Ultra. So they're taking it even a step further, making a processor that's even more powerful, even more battery efficient, even more streamlined, even more professional. And let me just pause and say, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, oh, I just bought a MacBook Pro and it only has the M1 Max inside of it, listen. You're not missing out. You have a great machine. When they released that M1 Ultra, I didn't sit here going, curses, why didn't I get that? I didn't sweat it. I've still got a great machine, and a few years down the road when I buy a new machine, I'll probably get the M1 Ultra. Do not sweat if you've got a machine with the M1 processor or the M1 Pro or the M1 Max and you don't have that M1 Ultra, you're probably fine. Those chips are so great. As a matter of fact, a lot of YouTubers and video editors are just sticking with their Mac Mini that has the regular old M1 chip in it, and they are thrilled with the results. So do not sweat it. A new chip is on its way from Apple, which is so exciting, but if you don't have that M1 Ultra in your Mac and you've got the M1, M1 Pro, M1 Max, you are in the clear. Don't worry. But if you're sitting there with an Intel machine, or if you're sitting there thinking about purchasing your first Mac or a new Mac, definitely do some digging into these different chips and see which one is right for you. I want to wrap up by talking about something that truly excited me. Apple today released a brand new computer. So we've seen a new iMac come out, but Apple's always had an iMac. We've seen the Mac Mini, a new version of the Mac Mini come out. We've seen the Mac Mini before though. MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, all of those machines have been updated recently, but those machines have been around for a while. But a new machine was released today, and it's called the Mac Studio. Now, for all intents and purposes, this looks like a Mac Mini, just taller. But the only reason it's taller that I can tell is because it needs cooling fans inside of it. They actually made it a point to bring up the fact that, don't worry, the fans are actually so quiet, because these new Macs with this new processor, you don't hear the fans at all. They hardly ever turn on because the machine is so efficiently run. But this machine is so powerful, you might hear some cooling apparatuses turn on while you're using it. And they made it a point to say, don't worry, it's very, very quiet. Now, this is a machine that has multiple inputs and outputs. It has no display that comes with it. They did release a display today that is not made specifically for that machine, but is a new display that has spatial audio and a great FaceTime camera in it and all that stuff. And to be honest, it's a display. You can look it up if you want. Here's a picture of it. Now, this Mac Studio is faster than the current Mac Pro. It's faster than the most powerful iMac. It's faster than the Mac Mini. It's faster than the MacBook Pro. It is a professional machine that sits right on your desktop and takes up such a small amount of space. It has all the I/O that you need, all of the inputs and all of the outputs. And if I was buying a machine to edit, stream, or even just have in an office or a home right now, this is probably the one that I would buy. And it's really cool to see this machine come onto the market because it looks like a Mac Mini. It's not as big as the Mac Pro, but it houses more power than both of those machines combined. So if you're looking for a new desktop and you're thinking, well, the Mac Mini's good and I know it's gonna be fine, and oh, well, the iMac is really, really great. I don't know if it's gonna be powerful enough, but I like the all-in-one display. Consider looking at the Mac Studio. It is definitely on my shopping list for the future. And the Mac Studio includes that M1 Ultra chip inside of it. And I'm not gonna go through all of the stats, just know this. It blows every other computer out of the water when it comes to speed, when it comes to efficiency, and when it comes just to everyday use as well as professional use. So if you are a video editor, if you are a musician or a producer of any kind, or if you're just looking for your next desktop, go for the Mac Studio if you're looking for something that's just gonna be a little bit, actually a lot, above the rest when it comes to speed and efficiency. Now this brings me to another point, because if you're sitting here going, well, the Mac Studio is now more powerful than the Mac Pro, which remember, the Mac Pro does not yet have that M1 processor. It doesn't have the M1 Ultra, it doesn't have the M1 Pro, it doesn't have the M1 Max. It's still an Intel processor. And you're going, well, if the Mac Studio is more powerful than the Mac Pro, is the Mac Pro bye-bye? Apple actually spoke to this. Apple actually said, you know, some of you are probably watching it. They said something along the lines of, some of you are probably watching this thinking to yourselves, well, if the Mac Studio is more powerful than the Mac Pro, well, what's going on with the Mac Pro? And they literally said, that's gonna be talked about at a later date. Now, this is a huge reveal from Apple. They normally don't talk this openly about future products, but they knew that there were going to be people in the seats at home thinking to themselves, well, is the Mac Pro just bye-bye? And they wanted to make sure that that market share, that line of customers was spoken to, was seen, and I really, really appreciated that, because in the past, a lot of times while Apple creates great things, they do kind of have this chip on their shoulder where they're like, this is what we do. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. So to speak to those consumers, those prosumers, those professionals, and say, don't worry, the Mac Pro is going to be addressed at a later date. I really, really appreciated that. So in a nutshell, that's about it. We got the new phone colors, we got the new phone, we got the new iPad, we got the M1 Ultra processor, we have that new display which has spatial audio and a FaceTime camera. Great. We have the Mac Studio coming out. We have so many new things coming from Apple. Obviously, I'm the most excited about the Mac Studio, and the next time I even hear anyone in my house say, we should probably have a desktop, right? I'm going to spring into action, swipe my credit card as soon as possible and buy that Mac Studio. The next time I do an install for Pro Audio or Pro Video or for a house of worship or something where they need a computer, Mac Studio is gonna be what I go for. This event showed me that Apple is still inventing, they're still innovating, and I love where they're headed, especially with these M1 processors and this new computer coming out. If you have any questions or if I missed anything, let me know down in the comments. Like this video, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.